What happens when the most powerful voice in America simply vanishes? In 2012, 16-year-old Jessica Sanchez didn't just compete on American Idol. She redefined what the show was capable of, earning a standing ovation from the judges nearly every single week. Industry legends called her the next Whitney Houston, and a global career seemed like a mathematical certainty. But then, the static set in. For over a decade, one of the most gifted vocalists of her generation was relegated to the background of the music industry, leading many to believe her light had burned out for good. But as we stand here in 2026, the story has taken a turn so dramatic, so high stakes, that it's being called the greatest comeback in reality TV history. Tonight, we're looking at the untold story of Jessica Sanchez, from the crushing weight of the Idol curse to the shocking 2025 moment that changed everything. The transition from a television stage to a global Billboard chart is a path littered with broken dreams, and for Jessica, the fall was as steep as the rise was fast. After finishing as the runner-up, she was immediately signed to Interscope Records, a powerhouse label that many assumed would catapult her to the moon. However, the reality behind the scenes was far more clinical and, frankly, devastating. The industry at the time was pivoting towards synthesized dance pop, and executives reportedly struggled to find a lane for a girl whose greatest strength was raw, soulful ballads. Her debut album, Me, You and the Music, failed to ignite the charts in the way the label demanded, peaking outside the top 25 and stalling almost instantly. Rumors began to circulate that the creative control was stripped away, leaving her with songs that felt hollow compared to the power she displayed on national television. When the label eventually parted ways with her, the silence was deafening. She wasn't just a free agent. She was a teenager who had been told she was the future of music, only to be discarded before her 21st birthday. The next Whitney was suddenly playing small club dates and corporate events, watching from the sidelines as her peers took the spotlight she was once promised. It was a cold introduction to the volatility of fame, and it was only the beginning of a decade-long struggle to find her voice again in an industry that had already moved on to the next shiny thing. While the public saw a quiet social media presence, the reality of Jessica's silent decade was a battle with shadows that nearly ended her career permanently. Between 2014 and 2024, Sanchez entered a period she now describes as her down season, characterized by a profound identity crisis and a heavy struggle with her mental well-being. When your entire worth is tied to your vocal cords and the applause of millions, the absence of that noise can be paralyzing. Sources close to the singer reveal she went through phases where she couldn't even bring herself to sing in the shower, let alone a studio. The pressure of being a has-been before the age of 25 led to a deep-seated depression that she kept hidden from her remaining fan base. She was a ghost in the industry, popping up for the occasional YouTube cover or international guest appearance, but the fire seemed to have dimmed. Behind closed doors, she was contemplating a total exit from the entertainment world, looking into alternative careers, and trying to reconcile the girl who sang for presidents with the woman who felt like a failure. This wasn't just a hiatus, it was a total retreat. The idol shine had worn off, replaced by the gritty reality of trying to pay bills and maintain a sense of self when the world only wants to talk about who you used to be. She was waiting for a sign, or perhaps just a reason to believe that her best days weren't already behind her in a pile of 2012 confetti. In early 2025, the rumors of a comeback began to leak, but no one, not even the most seasoned industry insiders, expected the high-wire act Jessica was about to perform. When she walked onto the stage for the milestone 20th season of America's Got Talent, the audience didn't just see a familiar face. They saw a woman who was 9 months pregnant. It was a move that many called reckless, but Jessica called it necessary. At 30 years old, she was returning to the very franchise where she had debuted as a 10-year-old prodigy. But this time, the stakes were personal. Performing at that level of vocal intensity while days away from labor is a physical feat that defies logic. The diaphragmatic support required to hit her signature high notes was compromised by her pregnancy, making every belt a genuine medical risk. There was also the reputational gamble. If she failed to deliver, she would be remembered as the former star who tried and failed to recapture the magic one last time. But as the first notes of her audition rang out, it became clear that her time away hadn't weakened her voice. It had deepened it. She wasn't just hitting notes, she was exorcising 10 years of frustration and doubt. The judges were visibly stunned, not just by the auditory power, but by the sheer audacity of a woman claiming her space while on the literal brink of motherhood. It was the ultimate all-in moment. That audition didn't just earn a standing ovation. It triggered a golden buzzer that shattered the internet and reignited a career that had been cold for a decade. As the video racked up tens of millions of views within hours, the narrative around Jessica Sanchez shifted from "whatever happened to her" to "how did we let her go?" Her journey through the season became a cultural phenomenon, a weekly masterclass in resilience that culminated in a historic finale. In late 2025, while balancing the demands of a newborn and the pressure of a global stage, Jessica was crowned the winner of AGT Season 20. She became the first person in the history of the show to return after 2 decades and claim the top prize, effectively rewriting the rules for reality TV veterans. The win wasn't just about the $1 million prize or the Las Vegas residency. It was a total vindication. The industry that had turned its back on her was suddenly knocking on her door again, but this time, she was holding all the cards. She had proven that her talent wasn't a product of a TV format, but a force of nature that couldn't be suppressed forever. The idle runner-up was gone, replaced by a champion who had survived the worst the industry could throw at her and come out the other side with her dignity and her voice intact. Today, in the spring of 2026, the landscape of Jessica Sanchez's life is unrecognizable compared to the quiet years of her down season. She is currently in the middle of her season's world tour, selling out arenas across Asia and the United States with a setlist that finally reflects her true artistry. But the real headline isn't the ticket sales. It's the peace she's found offstage. Now a mother to 5-month-old Eliana, Jessica has spoken openly about how her daughter provided the perspective she lacked in her teens. She no longer views music as her sole identity, which has ironically made her a better performer. Her recent appearance at the ASEAN Summit, where she performed for a room full of global heads of state, signaled her return to the highest levels of international prestige. She is no longer chasing a pop hit, she is building a legacy. Her new music, characterized by a more mature, soulful sound, is finally receiving the critical acclaim that her early work lacked. She has moved past the need for approval from label executives, opting instead for a path that prioritizes her mental health and her family. In 2026, Jessica Sanchez isn't just a singer who made a comeback. She's a woman who survived the machine and built her own world. The story of Jessica Sanchez is a powerful testament to the idea that our biggest failures are often just the intermission before our greatest act. In a world that prizes the new and discards the old with terrifying speed, she stood her ground for 10 years of silence before reclaiming her crown on her own terms. She reminds us that the clock doesn't stop just because the spotlight moves on, and that true talent is patient. As she continues her 2026 tour, the lesson remains clear. You haven't lost the race just because you're currently out of sight. Sometimes, the most beautiful songs are the ones that take a decade to write.